Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the LCS Report. I'm Rob. He's Nick, and we start off with our favorite question of the day. Nick, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to get into some more best of fives, some playoff action. I mean, we're down to four teams now, so a lot. We're gonna figure out a lot this weekend, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. I think it's going to be really fun. Obviously, we've got still technically four series left, but we'll have two this week, and then two the next week. So it should be exciting to say the least. But we'll get started here. How we're going to go about this is, like I said, we didn't get to really talk about 100 Thieves, so we'll go a little bit more in depth with them
Yeah,
from last time's episode during their, our discussion about them and Team Liquid. Then we'll head into Cloud9, and then we'll give our official picks. As a reminder, you can see here, I went 3 for 4 on my picks. Nick went a perfect 4 for 4. You can see what we had initially as well going through. We'll have to see if that will change as of this week. So, kind of, be ready to go through that. But we'll start today with TL and 100 Thieves. I want to talk about 100 Thieves. That quick exit or quick loss, I should say, to Cloud9 was very surprising. The way they came back and battled against an NRG team that I think was fighting tooth and nail was impressive for sure. I brought up yesterday, I do worry a little bit about, River Smites if he was just, if it's truly just that Contracts is on another level, but I would say that through both their series as well, they struggled a little bit more than I thought they would to establish good zone control and good zoning and just in general and control over objectives. I
yeah,
think that and I think that's a sign of a younger team, right? That kind of just comes with experience. But it does worry me a little bit going into this Team Liquid series, especially with how well Team Liquid played against both FlyQuest and Dignitas. Obviously, they seemingly found their style. The only thing that I will say is 100 Thieves are the mid to late game champs of the season, right? Like they are the one team that has been damn near perfect later on in games because they are just constantly behind, and Team Liquid has really struggled to get ahead. So, Nick, talk about 100 Thieves for a second, and I think we'll dive a little bit more into this matchup.
yeah, for sure. So I mean, in terms of 100 Thieves, it like specifically in context of playoffs, I mean, it's hard to say if we've actually seen this team at their full power at all yet
Yeah.
because River was really sick in the C9 series, which again, I don't think that 100 Thieves would have won that series regardless,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that was a pretty big factor in the 3-0 and also the nature of it. And I think it just showed just how important River is to this team when he's
Yep.
not like at 100%. We can see how the wheels fall off relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, and against NRG, I know that he was feeling much better, but I believe Golden Glue said in the pre-coach like not 100%. So I'm hoping that above all else, just as a preface, that everybody that's such an annoying intangible left factor, and especially for a player like River, where it's like you can argue his impact is it could be big because it's off, it's he has so much impact on the team off the rift. You
Mm-hmm.
could also argue it's small because he's not necessarily a guy who's like known for mechanical outplays. The point is, I hope that everybody's healthy, and that what that means is that we
There's no
not don't haven't
caveats.
necessarily seen 100 Thieves. There's no caveats, and we
Yeah.
haven't seen 100 Thieves at their best yet, and they still beat NRG, who
Mm-hmm.
also still had people sick. I
Yeah.
believe Oakland was still a little sick too. So it's like it's unfortunate timing for that, but it is something that you have to consider. What I would say is that I'm going to assume that 100 Thieves is at full health, and that means that they have a chance to play their best playoff series yet against Team Liquid. That being said, um, you know, this is a team with a lot of inexperience, or
Mm-hmm.
rather a lack of experience. That's a better way of putting that. And we're talking 5 game, 5 game series. We're now deep into it. Like I do think like playoff fatigue may take its toll when you're like especially like rookies. Like Meech just played 14 games across like 6 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's gonna potentially hit if this series goes 5 games, he's played 13 games in 2 weeks, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's lessened a bit by the fact that people the amateur scene and the tier two scene, the challenger scene plays best of twos, which I really like.
Mm-hmm.
Just it's good to have more games, more reps. But overall, I just think that we haven't seen 100 these 100% in playoffs yet, but we have seen Quid at 100%. Quid's been fantastic, and I think that he's going to need to continue playing this well for them to have a chance against Liquid. Because,
Yeah.
and not to jump ahead into the matchup, but I do think like TL has looked better and better each series they've played. And like you said, they're similar, right? They want to get to the late game, and that's where they thrive.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is interesting is how different these teams function in that way. I feel like Team
Yes.
Liquid has a thought out game plan, and it means we don't want to scrape on our knee before 20 minutes. We want to have very clean, just let it play out, get our scaling, and then we're gonna group and fight better and all that stuff. 100 Thieves, I feel, is more of like we're going to fight you tooth and nail for the first 15 minutes, probably not get an advantage, but get enough information and get certain parts of our players and our team to the places they need to be to then have the right tools and the right information to win the late game, right? So we have two teams that really kind of thrive in the late game, but 100 Thieves does it by kind of just like making a mess for the first 15 minutes of the game, just like full on abstract finger painting, right? Like we'll figure out what it means later. Like let's just put some paint on the canvas. Whereas Team Liquid's like I already know exactly what I want to draw, and I need nobody to get in the way of that. Yeah. So it's really going to be up to if 100 Thieves can use that sort of disruptor sort of strength of theirs in the early game, and if Team Liquid can either withstand that, or if they can't, can they bounce back? Can they get back on track if they are thrown a curveball by 100 Thieves early on in the series, in the matches? I think.
Well, and I think that's what's I love the fact that you dove into and I think we'll get obviously into the matchups now. Like,
sorry, I kind of jumped ahead a little bit.
No, I think that's good. No, this is good. This is, I mean, you gave your thoughts on it. I'm pumped about that. I think that these two teams, while they play for the late game, like you said, it's stylistically completely different, like in the ways that they get there, and also I think in the ways that they end up playing, right? Like I feel like Team Liquid are much more like clumped together, make plays together, whereas for 100 Thieves, I felt like they've really utilized Quid and Sniper in the side lanes pretty well, and so I feel like for me, they are stylistically different. And it wouldn't surprise me. So like, what's interesting is some of these series have gone an hour and a half, like in just total time, right? This could be a series where we get 5 games that are like 40 minutes each.
Yeah,
and that wouldn't surprise me at all. Like we could have like almost 3.5 hours of game time, with this series, and like, and that includes like, breaks and everything like that. But like, that would be insane, but it wouldn't really surprise me because I think that both of these teams are going to play towards their strengths. I think we're going to see quite a battle in every single position, which is really cool too, because, I feel like I just feel like the individual battles in this series could be extremely fun to watch, right? Like the new guard and Sniper versus the old guard in Impact. River versus Umti. Who's the better Korean, jungler, right? You got Quid and APA. You've seen how passionate I am in our discussion last time with Nick, about APA, but also like Quid is like the second coming of Chovy, right? So can he get that huge advantage? Then you have, the bot lane, which is two younger guys ish, versus an older guy and the like potential double lift replacement, if some people want to call him that. So there's like storylines in every single lane, and I want to take a second to pick out the one that you're going to be watching the most. Now I'm going to just cut out mid because I think that would be both of ours. I think that that's a separate discussion because I think the Quid versus APA matchup will genuinely be the most important one. I think that, would you agree with that?
I think it's the most important, but the least nuanced. It's a matter of like, APA needs to
Really?
not get gapped by
Oh,
Quid.
okay.
I think it's
In
that
that sense.
simple.
Okay.
Like in the way of like I don't think Team Liquid actually wins the series through mid lane, but they definitely lose it through mid lane if it goes
Exactly.
poorly.
Yeah.
So I think Team Liquid's more, it's not that the mid lane matchup isn't important. I just don't. It doesn't need to be nuanced. It just needs to not go horribly for APA. He needs to lose gracefully at worst, right? He can't we can't have these 4 deaths before 20 minutes games, not against Quid. Um, and what I actually think is I'm actually really interested in the bot lane because I think that we've seen
Okay.
Sniper against enough veteran top laners to where I think like we have a good idea of like uh, how important experience plays a part and it's going to play a part in this matchup. And I mean, the differences between Impact and Sniper are fascinating, right? I mean, when Impact, debuted, when he won his first world championship, Sniper was in like 3rd grade or some crazy shit, right? Like, it's like so messed up, right? Just hate that sentence that I just said, right?
Yeah.
But it's the bot lane for me, because I really like how, I mean, and again, I've been a very big proprietor of the idea that Umpty hasn't been bad in NA. Team Liquid and Umpty have not gelled, and I felt a
Sure.
little vindicated. I think Umpty's been pretty damn good in the playoffs.
I would agree.
Some of his Lee Sin plays specifically have been the best mechanical Lee Sin plays I've seen in the region in a couple years. He had a few flash insects that were just works of art, and it's really interesting to see how I feel like the way that he go buttons for Team Liquid is very playmaking centric, whereas
Yeah.
River I think is more of like a cerebral, like you said, like 100 is going to kind of pick you apart on an objective and play the map, right? They're going to like put a guy in the side lane, they're going to try to make you make a tough decision,
Yeah.
and then beat you in preparedness for that tough decision. Whereas I think Team Liquid's like, no, we're just going to 5v5 you, and our players are individually better, and we got the picks we wanted, so we're going to win the team fight. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So but for me, it's the bot lane because of the fact that one, we have, I think Core JJ has played well in the playoffs, and he's like has more experience than the other 3 guys in the bot lane combined by like a wide margin. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's a big
It's not even
factor.
close.
I think, and I think that Meech and Ayla have done their best. They've been great team fighters. Like
Mm-hmm.
Meech, obviously, but if you look at like a lot of Ayla's big, the reason why Ayla's not talked about a lot is because a lot of his big plays go unnoticed. It's often like a surprisingly well timed like shield or
Yep.
just like a really like minor thing that like, oh, and if he hadn't done that 10 seconds ago, Meech wouldn't have gotten that quadra kill,
Mm-hmm.
or those little tiny things. But TL has just been so dominant. Their bot lane's been really good early on, and that's not 100 of these. If there's one place they don't really want a ton of action, and is I think it's in the bot lane, right? Like unless River's down there making it a 3v3 or 3v2, like they don't want that 2v2 smoke.
No.
And I think that if Team Liquid can exploit that, then 100 of these is in a lot of trouble. Um, but I think it's a little bit more nuanced than just like, whereas like I think it's more of a stylistic preference. Obviously, I think like Core JJ pound for pound is a better support than Ayla, but that's not the point. The point is the the styles and the strengths of these bot lanes in playoffs and how they play against each other. Whereas I feel like the mid lane matchup is kind of just like, well, one guy's clearly better than the other right now, and the guy who's worse needs to not be extra worse.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
No, I
But
absolutely
you
get
said
that.
that you said we should skip the mid lane matchup and talk about it. But it sounds like you have some thoughts. I'd love to hear them because I really was kind of like, well, APA needs to not get completely annihilated. That was really my only thought on mid lane because I don't think he's going to win the game for Team Liquid, but he could be the one who loses it just because of how dominant Quid has been in the mid lane, and the nature of how dominant he's been. His team fight positioning, his playmaking. I mean, the biggest problem for Team Liquid, even in their team fights, is that their young carries have not always had the best positioning. Like I
Yeah.
remember there's a game that they lost in the FlyQuest series where Jan had a great lane on Varus, great mid game on Varus, and then they ended up losing
Yeah, he was like in mid
because
lane and he got
he
caught
got
out.
picked like 3 times in
Yeah.
a row, like 3 times in like 7 minutes, like
Yep.
more deaths than he had the previous 30 minutes, and like some of those were like, oh well, he didn't have vision 3 times in a row. That's a skill issue. That's not
Yeah,
being
it's
aware.
unacceptable.
And we've seen him die too early in team fights. It's not as egregious as some of Tactical's positioning in team fights, for example. But no, I'm just trying to
No,
give.
it's
I'm not
fair.
trying to
It's
flame
fair.
Tactical. I'm trying to give a good comparison
Sure.
of where I think it's like these guys are both great players who are momentum based lane dominant players when they're at their best. Team fight positioning is an issue, and 100 Thieves is a great team to exploit that if Team Liquid can't have the bot lane run over the early game, and they're not gonna. They haven't been a team that really plays towards the early game, so I think it'd be smart for them to really kind of kick it into gear. And because I think These is expecting them to kind of just do nothing and coast because that's what they've done the whole time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So
And
yeah,
I mean, so my comments on the bot lane are that I think you're right. I think this is the best I've seen Core JJ all year.
Yeah,
I think by a
for sure.
pretty large margin. So I want to see him really take over in a lane that he should be the dominant player in, right? But I guess yeah, I'll talk about the mid lane. My thoughts for mid lane were how many resources are like Umti and Core JJ going to give to APA, right? Because sure, he can't win them the game, but like you said, if they can just keep him in it, and like what are they going to pick for him, right? Like does he bring out like a more supportive pick like a Karma, right? Does he bring out um something that's more easily sustained in lane than what is, how would I put this? More survivable in lane and not as like do they stick him on the ASOL, right? To just sit there and scale infinitely. Does Quid counter um with Vagar again and stuff like that? Like I think that matchup is going to be really interesting
Yeah,
to watch because yes, like we know that Quid is going to be the focus for 100 Thieves. But at the same time, like I know APA can't probably win them the game, but if they shut down Quid, that could win them the game, right? And that doesn't necessarily have anything to
yeah,
do with APA. It's just keep him in it. Everybody else come in and they pile on, right? Like we've seen that happen in the past. I don't think 100 Thieves are totally reliant on Quid, but I'm more surprised that nobody's really tried to just put him behind, right? Like NRG didn't really try to put him behind. They just let Palafox get his brains beat in for 5 straight games, right? Like
yeah,
I think APA, like I think the mid lane is ultimately going to be where these games are won and lost. Does APA hang in there? If he hangs in there by himself, I think Team Liquid would have a really good chance because that means Umti's putting his time and effort in other places, right? And I think Impact can kind of hang or can very easily, I think, go, sparring with Sniper in the top lane, while the bot lane, like you said, can get their own advantages, and Umti's able to put his resources in other places. Do they try to shut down Quid completely and just hope that Impact and Yon are able to do enough on their own, right, to be able to accelerate the game based on how things are going? Do 100 Thieves, right? Does River just try to get Quid so far ahead that it doesn't matter, right? Like it doesn't matter what TL does. Like that's what I'm saying is I just feel like it doesn't matter what happens in the bot lane. It doesn't matter what happens in the top lane. And it only kind of matters what's happening in the jungle because if Quid gets too far ahead or if they are able to focus down Quid, like I think Quid is the key player in this series. And that's kind of what I
that's
meant
fair.
by that is I think that's it. I actually
No,
have
that's a great point.
another like group that I'm focused on that I wanted to talk about, but that's kind
Yeah,
of why I thought mid lane was gonna be so important.
no, you're absolutely right. I guess I didn't mean to downplay the significance of the mid lane. Just more so, I think it's less nuanced unless they choose to completely focus on it. Because I think it's like you said, it's kind of like you don't want a repeat of the NRG situation of like it didn't really seem to matter what the mid lane matchup was because Palafox was second best every single time, right? Like,
Yeah,
but it'll be interesting to see, like you said, like I mean, like it'd be cool to see them. I mean, I don't think APA's played any Karma, but UMT has shown great carry jungle skills in terms of not carry like Kindred, but like playmaking. Lee Sin, he's a Lilia specialist. Like I wouldn't mind seeing them throw some curveballs in draft. Put APA on a utility pick. Maybe
yeah,
Impact has a pocket Mordekaiser he pulls out once a year and everyone forgets about it, and he's like won like 6 of his last 7 games on it because he does it like once a year, and it's always good for
and it's
something, right?
insane every time. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd love to see that. I just also don't know if we will because I think playing through the mid lane and making it more of like just a I think Team Liquid will play not to lose mid lane and try to win elsewhere, as
Well,
opposed to
and
playing
yeah,
through mid lane or around mid lane to try to win. Because I think it would require a lot of strategic adjustments from what's worked for them in playoffs and what they were trying to build towards in regular season.
but
So
see, that's
I would
how
love
I
to be
think that they
wrong,
win,
but
though, right? Is because like I don't know that
okay,
they win late game against this 100 Thieves team,
okay.
right?
So you're
Because
saying they have to play early game if
well,
they want to win
they
this thing.
have to at least, I think, play more early game than they have,
Okay,
right? Like, I'm not saying that they can't focus on a scaling team, but what I'm saying is that like, unless if 100 Thieves are stupid enough to give them ASOL and Smolder for some reason again, which I just can't
Uh,
imagine why you would do that against this team at this point, right?
no,
Like
my
if that
boy
happens,
Golden Glue
you
does better
just
than that.
yeah. If that well, and that's where actually my focus was going to be. So I guess I'll shift this. My focus was actually going to be on the
Beautiful.
coaches. Was thinking
Okay.
about Golden Glue and Spawn more than anything, and what they are going to have to do stylistically to win. Like I think 100 Thieves, as weird as it sounds, they have the stylistic advantage. I know they got their brains beat in by Cloud9, and
Yeah.
but like I think so far at least 100 Thieves have played the harder teams like in each individual round, right? Like I think Cloud9 is better than FlyQuest right now. Sorry, spoiler for early or for later. And then I think that NRG were significantly better than Dignitas, right? Like especially the way Dignitas played. Like I don't put a lot of stock in that Dignitas series as much as I do the FlyQuest one for Team Liquid. That I seeing what I saw out of them in that FlyQuest series was like, okay, this team is back. They look better. Dignitas just looked
Mhm.
lost from the beginning. I mean, we said it last time.
Yeah.
I think you could have put 5 challenger level, like really good, like they've been playing together for a long time players, and they
I don't know
might have
about
been able to
that.
win that game. Like, and it's not that I'm trying to insult Dignitas. It's just that they got so
Yeah.
they let the pressure get to them.
No, I hear you.
Not
I
that
hear
they
you.
are worse players than those challenger players. That's why I was trying to say that those 5 challenger players
No.
have all been playing together for multiple years. Like the
No.
pressure
Yeah.
doesn't matter to them, right? Like they just can go in and play. Like, dude, I mean, I was watching those games and that Dignitas team, like
Yeah.
Team Liquid could have done anything
Yeah. You're
essentially in
saying
one of
that
those
Dig,
games.
even if Team Liquid was the better team, Dig underperformed massively in that
It's
series.
yeah, and
Both
it
things can
wasn't
be true.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so for
That
me,
yeah, that's fair.
like this 100 Thieves series for Team Liquid is really going to determine whether or not they even have a chance to win a game against either Cloud9 or FlyQuest should they move on. Right? And I know it sounds stupid, but like if they let this go to 3-2, I may not pick them to win a game against either of those teams, right? If they stomp in 3-0 like they did against Dignitas because they've really found their groove, well, then that's a whole different story, right? For 100 Thieves, though, I feel like they've learned a lot. Like that brain beating that they got against Cloud9, I think showed up in some of their drafts. And I think Golden Glue adjusted really well. Again, for, when your back's against when you have, I think it's the old adage of like, with a dog with its back, against the wall is going to fight, scrappier and harder than ever, right? It's literally fighting to survive. That's how it
Yeah.
felt like for NRG with me. Like they were fighting to just survive, right? And I think that game 4 was the prime,
That's crazy.
was the prime, version of that, right? Where they
Yeah.
just they were on death's door, and it was either Palafox made a play, or it was for sure season done. Like them winning that game may have saved a job or two, right? Like it was that significant. Whereas I think for this 100 Thieves series, not only have they been better all season, and I think they're 1-1 against Team Liquid. They might be 2-0. I can't remember.
They're 2-0.
They are 2-0. Okay.
Well, wait. They
Let me
won
check.
no,
I
I
have
think
it
they're
up here.
2-0 because they definitely won the first game because it was the first game of the season, and we were all like, "Damn, Team Liquid's going to slaughter." And then
That's
Sniper
right.
pulled out Riven, and it was very cool.
Yeah, they are. So they're 2-0 against 100 Thieves, or against Team Liquid already. So you have
Mhm.
that plus, like I just think Quid is the difference maker here. I really do, and I think for Golden Glue and Spawn, they have to plan around that, right? Like Golden Glue needs to have a plan for, hey, if in game 1 they're ultra focusing Quid, this is how we shift things, right? And for Spawn, you have to have like I feel like Team Liquid are just kind of on the back heels, right? As much as I defend APA and I still want him to be great, Quid is just on another level right now, and he's just gonna
Yeah.
have to. They're going to have to plan around that mid lane game, I think, more than any other part of the game. And I want to see how
That's fair.
drafts are going to be, and what is Golden Glue going to give up? What is Spawn going to give up? Like that's why for me, I know I mostly talked about the players, but ultimately that strategy and that mindset comes down from the coaches. So that's where I'm at
Okay.
in that series. We're gonna do live
So
predictions.
Yeah, yeah, hit me.
Okay. So right
Yeah.
now it's 100 Thieves versus TL. I gotta change that because I initially had Dig, obviously. Um,
Hmm.
I am going to pick 100 Thieves, and I think it's going to be a 3-2. I do think TL are going to fight really hard in this series. And I think that Spawn's going to have some trickery up his sleeves. But I think a 3-2 100 Thieves is almost as likely as a 3-0 100 Thieves. I think it's going to be one of the two. So, but I still am predicting him to win regardless. I really think TL will put up a fight, but I just think ultimately, and I hope it doesn't lose APA's job, but I do think that Quid will ultimately just kind of have his way in this series.
That's fair.
What about
But
you?
so you think it could be 3-2, but it could be 3-3-0 just based on like how bad mid lane goes, or like what's you said it's almost as
For me,
likely, and
it's
that's like a
it's going to be based on
parity.
draft,
So
right? It's going to be
okay,
like how disrespectful is Golden Glue going to be in draft, right? Like I'm telling you, if they give over an ASOL Smolder game, you might as well just FF and go next, right? Like there's just like I'm sorry, but Team Liquid they know how to play that comp really well, and I don't think that 100 Thieves have a like unless if Quid brings out like a Kali maybe, right, and can just get to that back line without any issues whatsoever.
I could see them baiting an Aesol pick. I agree that don't give Smolder. Right? I could see them being like, yeah, leave Aesol up. We actually Quid could have an answer, right? That's
I think that
like
that's for
like
sure something, but I think you leave that Smolder up, man, bro.
you're asking to
Like it
lose.
doesn't really matter if you have the both of them. The wave clear is just so strong, and they're just gonna scale forever. I mean, you could literally have a comp where it's like Orn, um, I don't know, literally whatever Umpty wanted to play, plus Aesol, Smolder, and like Zillion even, just to keep them alive forever, right? Like, or actually probably
Right?
Renata.
Yeah.
Renata would actually be even better in
Yeah.
that matchup,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. No, I get what you're
Um,
saying. Yeah.
so it's just like, and they could just literally infinitely farm, and you'd never have the push. It wouldn't matter. Like, I mean, we literally saw it in that T1 series. I think it was the LCK. I think it said LPL, but I think it was the LCK, where they lost that game regardless of having literally every single thing down because Smolder did 777,000 damage. He's just that strong right now, And you pair that with an
Are you
Aesol.
talking about you said the T1 versus
I
the
think it was
Nongshim
T-Well,
game? Is
right?
that what you're talking about?
I think so. I can't remember. I
T1
just
versus Nongshim.
was it
T1
that.
eventually won the game, but it took
Did
them.
they? Okay.
They had 4 Barons, 3 Elders. It was like insane. Like it was absolutely bananas how long it took them. And really, the the only reason they won is because the small. I can't remember who the name of the Nongshim carry is right now, but he died. His only death in the game was like 45 minutes in, and he died with flash stuff. And I'm like, yo, I would be so sad.
Oh yeah,
but
no, and
yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like
but yeah,
that's
no,
the kind
Smolder
of
is
game
absurd.
that
Yeah,
I think like if 100 Thieves are disrespectful and they leave up stuff like that, or if they just play disrespectfully too, because they are young. Like Quid and Sniper and Meech may just feel like, hey, like we got this in the bag. Like we feel like we're better individually, so maybe we'll just style on them, right? They play with a lot of confidence, so I can see that confidence coming back to fail them, and 100 Thieves still doing a 3-2. So that's where I'm at. What about you?
gotcha. I have a Team Liquid 3-2.
Really,
I
you
don't want
flipped?
to. I would.
You flipped.
Yeah, yeah. I would like for 100 Thieves to win. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be very close.
Ooh.
Like my second most likely outcome is like again my top two likely outcomes are 5 games in either direction, but I think Team Liquid can actually edge this out. Um, I don't know, man. I'm just getting the same vibes as like Golden Guardians, Team Liquid in the lower bracket last summer. It's a River team versus an APA team, and we felt the same way. But what we saw was like veterancy and like just class over form, and I think we saw a lot of that between Team Liquid and 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves, you know, they've had illness to deal with and stuff, but I think it's not an exaggeration by any metric, I think, to say that Team Liquid's been the better team in playoffs so far.
Yeah.
Of the two teams, I'm very, very comfortable saying that. And I do think experience is going to play a big part here. I mean, because we do think this is going to go 5 games. If these teams play long, this is going to be a long series. It's going to be long games and a long series, right? Like, and I do think like if we're talking about it going to 5 games, because I do think it's that, right? It's like regardless of we've talked a lot about the strengths and weaknesses of the team. It's going to go 5 games, and with the way playoffs has gone, with the experience of this team, and with how long I think the average game time here is going to be, I think in that game 5 when everybody's bloody and dusty and tired, give me Impact and Core.
Wow.
I mean, I think that they've played amazing through playoffs. I think like whether it's a veteran thing of like spring split doesn't matter, or they just rise to the occasion, whatever it is, they're playing better. I do think that I am super concerned about the mid lane. I do think like I don't think the hate APA has gotten is anywhere near justified. I do think the criticism around his play has been justified.
Sure.
And at least in the last like 3 or 4 weeks. And I could see that being a problem for sure. But that's why I think it's going to be 5 games. But I don't know. I think like these are teams, and it's like 100 Thieves. Like they don't necessarily win their games convincingly, right? Like they make a mess, they learn from it, and then beat you like with better cerebral play. But I'm wondering how continuously sharp, how many more like cards they can play in that style against Team Liquid, who is pound for pound on paper the better team, right? Like we had this team above. I had 100 Thieves in 7th place because 100 Thieves is a team that's greater than the sum of their parts, right? And I think that ultimately, again, 5 games is the biggest likelihood here, but I do think that when the dust settles, it'll be Team Liquid standing. I would like for it to be 100 Thieves. I've been singing River's praise since River came to the LCS. I've been singing his praises.
Yeah.
Ever since I did like a feature on him when he's on PSG Talent, and I think he's just a fantastic player. I don't know, unless there's a massive draft gap. I think if it just comes down to it, because I don't think there's a world like no matter how we get there, this is a 5-game series. That's my most like solid predictions that the series goes 5 games, and if we're in game 5 at that point with these teams who don't end games before 30 minutes very often at the earliest, I just we've seen 100 that'll be 100 Thieves played almost a full season's worth of games, like
I love it.
in this in this fan of this, and that's good, but I do think that like at that point like mental toughness and fatigue is going to play a part. Like Impact and Core have played not just hundreds of thousands of games at a competitive level, but just some of these runs they do. Some of the formats were tougher, some deep worlds runs, LCK gauntlets, LCS gauntlets. Like I do think that this like there's enough of a disparity where 100 Thieves isn't enough of a better team, even if they've for the majority of the year executed on a higher level. Recently, Team Liquid's played better, and experience is on their side, which I think is going to play a huge part in a lower bracket match that we know is going to go along because of how long these teams play individual games. So that's what I think. I guess the other option is that's like, well, if the games go short, if the games go short, in my opinion, that means Team Liquid won really hard. I don't think there's a world where 100 Thieves snowballs and stomps Team Liquid. If they beat them convincingly, it's going to be through methodical control. 100 Thieves doesn't roll over people unless Olaf Sniper gets like 7 kills on Olaf. Impact's not going to let that happen. That's not a thing Impact lets people do.
We're gonna find out.
So
I have a lot of thoughts on this.
That's where I'm at.
We have to move along because I would love to.
Hey, I want to be wrong. I would prefer 100 Thieves to move on.
No,
this is my prediction of what I think is going to happen. Not what
you're
I
fair.
love River. I think they're an interesting team, but I think here's the thing. I really think that all the things I'm saying are right about Team Liquid, which are like they're waiting too long to scale and all these things. I don't know if 100 Thieves right now is the team to exploit them. This is going to be a TSM situation of like legacy TSM rosters where I want the team doing more to win, but ultimately the other team has Doublelift and Bjergsen and 40 minutes comes for you, and I think that's what it's going to be. I think it's like, well, it's Impact and Core at 40 minutes. So, I don't know. It's like Core's made mistakes in early.
That's the X factor. He is the X factor. But we have to,
especially if he can super gap,
because otherwise we're not.
Okay. Sorry.
C9. No, it's okay.
Okay, sorry.
Like I said, because I would love to go back and forth on this as much as possible. But FlyQuest C9. All right, it's time to give them their due. They both have played, I think, very well this year at different points. FlyQuest worried me immensely in that Team Liquid series. I mean, I sat there and went, if Cloud9 play well against 100 Thieves, I think Cloud9 are the better team without a doubt. Well, Cloud9 went and absolutely, bent 100 Thieves over and spanked them. It's just kind of how it went, right? I'll just be honest. Like, I think this series could be great, but I don't think C9 are going to allow that to happen. I think C9 have decided, I think Berserker specifically has decided that he is tired of the slander and he is tired of the disrespect, and he's going to put on his big boy pants, and Masu and Busio are about to have a hellacious time in the bot lane. Regardless of if it's actually in lane or just overall, I hate to say it. I'm just gonna get my prediction now, so that maybe we can even get back to the 100 Thieves.
No, let's go from there. Screw it.
Like,
no, let's go from there.
Dude, I have Cloud9 winning 3-1. I think FlyQuest maybe find a game.
Ooh.
But like, what I saw from FlyQuest was without Jensen and Busio, I think playing as well as they did, and Inspired just going absolutely apeshit on Viego in that game 5. There's a real chance that this would be TL versus Cloud9, and I would have predicted that to be a 3-0 because I think C9 are just that strong right now. Like, the way they looked, I'm not one to overreact too much to just one series, but like, if we're picking 3-2 regardless in the other series, and Team Liquid were able to push FlyQuest to 5 games, so we're saying essentially that TL and 100 Thieves are about the same level, then that to me means that Cloud9 are the better team without a doubt. Now I know there are nuances, there are differences, right? I'm not disrespecting that portion of it, but I'm just telling you that, like, logically, I'm just gonna put it in now. I am completely flipping. I'm going C9 3-1. I think Fudge played outstanding. Like, they didn't even need JoJo in that last series, right? Like, but what he did to Quid was almost it reminded everybody why JoJo's one of the best. I mean, like, he's so damn good. He's just so good.
He's very he's a very, very good player. Yeah, I mean,
and like, JoJo versus Jensen in the past has ultimately come out JoJo, right? Like, we've seen some of these matchups.
Yeah, that's true.
Before. Blabber versus Inspired, those have been pretty even. But even Fudge versus Bwipo, Fudge used to get the better of Bwipo when he was on Team Liquid, right? Like, there's just like, it comes down to the bot lane. That's the least known position for both of these. And I'm just going to be honest, like, I don't think Masu and Busio really have a shot against Berserker and Vulcan at their best. And like, Vulcan hasn't even played at his best yet. Berserker showed it, and it's like,
Berserker was crazy last weekend. He was really good.
It was nuts. So it's just like, it's no disrespect to FlyQuest. I think they're an awesome team, and there's a reason why I picked them the way I did last time. And it was because I wasn't confident in Cloud9. I am now confident in Cloud9, and good on you boys. The regular season didn't really seem to matter for you guys because you're going to finals 3-1.
Yeah. Man, I really do wish we had more time today. I have FlyQuest 3-2.
You're keeping it? You are a crazy son of a bitch. I love it. Yeah. All right, go with this.
I do.
We're totally different this week. Let's go.
I agree with all of the things that I agree with all the things you said strategy-wise. Like, I think all those things are true. Everything we've seen about playoffs, I like the comparison you did of, like, TL and 100 Thieves are relatively close. Look at how those series went against their respective opponents. I get that. I'm there for that. Yeah. This is C9 we're talking about, though. And one thing that I think that has gone under the radar is C9 has had their peaks are definitely higher than FlyQuest peaks. Oh, yeah. They're the highest of any NA team by, like, a pretty wide margin. But they are a very streaky, inconsistent team right now. Yes, we saw them really, really take 100 Thieves to the cleaners in a 3-game series where River was sick. So, and I'm not saying that they don't win that series outright anyway, but the combination of the nature of how inconsistent they've been plus how highly I value River when he's at his best, makes me makes me weigh that factor a little bit less than you, just to explain my methodology there. The big thing for me is that I feel like C9 has often gone through these phases where they are really good, and then for a few games they get too confident and kind of drop off, and then they get really good again. And it doesn't seem to be like we see adjustments in terms of like maybe the draft or like, oh, they're doing that better, but it never feels like it was something that the team couldn't do before. It was something that they weren't doing. Whereas whenever I've seen FlyQuest make a mistake, like drafting Karma for Jensen, for example, like, now, we have someone just put a shot caller on Nuke Duck. Like, no Karma mid for this team. No, we don't do that, right? And every single time it's been like, oh, that comp was good. Let's run it back with Morgana. It works. Every time FlyQuest has had a misstep, the way that they've addressed it and solved it, like it's directly applicable to the problem. So I see a team that is on paper much better, but hasn't really shown that they can necessarily like. Not that they can't fix issues, but it's more of like, oh, I guess the good C9 showed up today. Whereas when FlyQuest makes a mistake or shows weakness, I feel like they directly address it. I feel like I see the same FlyQuest team that's progressed and grown. Whereas I feel like there's two different C9 teams. They're twin brothers. One of them hates me, and I don't know who I'm going to get, And like, because of that, I think C9 come in a little overconfident. And I think it's close, and I think it's 3-2 FlyQuest because I think they've consistently been the team that has had more to build on and more direct. You can connect the dots to their improvement because really Cloud9's story has been, we know this team is here. Why aren't they always here? Whereas FlyQuest, I actually see a team trying things, screwing it up, and then adjusting. And for me, I think that if C9 are going to win this series, it's going to be like a 3-0, like just roll them over, stomp. And I do think that FlyQuest wins this 3-2. I think right now I'm confident in saying that C9 is the most likely team to go to MSI from North America, no matter what.
Okay.
I don't know if they're the most likely team to go to MSI. I don't know if that's the first seed though. I think I'd be very C9 to. I don't think this is a team that after what I saw and after what I've seen, I really said I'm like, if C9 shows up good in playoffs, they're just going to coast. Right? I did say that.
You did. You said it.
I'm flipping. I think there's a little too much stock in their win and a little too much stock in FlyQuest loss. Because I think that Team Liquid actually is a better team than 100 Thieves right now, but I think the matchup, the stylistic nature of these teams levels the playing field again for Team 100 Thieves. So I'm not counting the FlyQuest and C9 results against those teams as highly. I think that Team Liquid I think FlyQuest underperformed against Team Liquid, but I think not by a lot. I think Team Liquid played a lot better than they did in the regular season. And so I think that if C9 does what they've been doing, which is already saying C9 is back, I don't know if they're back. And I think that it's very likely they can still win the title, but I think that we have C9 going to MSI. I would be shocked if C9 don't make it to MSI. But I think based on what I've seen, I think it's through the lower bracket. I think they could still win the finals, mind you. But I think they need to take one more lump. So I have FlyQuest 3-2. I think it's very likely that FlyQuest can go to the finals, and I'm not sure if we're then doing finals prediction. Are we doing the last 2 weekend predictions too, or no?
We will do the predictions, but we're not going to talk about them.
Okay, that's fair. Okay. Yeah. So again, I mean, you probably think I'm completely insane, and I don't blame you. This is definitely my predictions this week are very, I think, against the grain for the most part. But again, these are all 3-2s. Like, I'm acknowledging the other side of them. I just think that these things are going to be slight difference makers. And again, for both of these series, I do think like the second likeliest outcome is a 5-game win for the team that I didn't pick. Like, I don't think there's going to be a 3-1 or a 3-0 unless someone like massively just like, oh, we just didn't show up today, or like, oh, they left Smolder up every game or something like that, right? Like I really do think that this could be a. I think this could be good in the long run for Cloud9 if they lose this series too. Like, genuinely, I think they could be a better team at MSI if they lose this series than if they win.
So I have
that's where I'm at.
I have a very big, I think, what would I call this? Wrench to throw in your theory.
Hit me.
Since week 4,
Okay.
right? So that was the end of Cloud9's 4-game losing streak, and this includes playoffs.
Yes.
And they faced generally the same teams.
Okay.
Cloud9 are 8-2.
Nice.
FlyQuest are 7-5.
Okay.
Okay, and that includes 3 losses to Team Liquid. To be clear,
Okay.
a team that I think you and I would argue are not even close to the same level as Cloud9 right now. Right?
Not close to the same level as Cloud9 against 100 Thieves.
I'm just saying,
If we're talking
like, if
most
we're
recent
talking about
performance, yeah.
consistency,
Yes.
right? Cloud9 have now been doing it for 4 straight weeks, where they've only lost 2 games, and one of those games was to Immortals. So, and I know that, like, you may argue, well, that counts. Like, dude, Cloud9 were probably just honestly screwing around in those Immortals games. There's no reason why they should have been 0-2 against Immortals, right? And, like, not just that, but those were.
I mean, they definitely got beat in the first one.
Yeah.
Maybe the second one, you could say the first one they got beat. Immortals was a better team. They got beat in the first one. Maybe the second one was whatever.
I think that was Cloud9 being disrespectful. I don't think that there's no world where Cloud9 playing. Like,
who's to say that doesn't happen against FlyQuest?
The other losses that they have. Like, what my point is that if you're arguing for consistency, right? Cloud9 have actually been the more consistent team, winning wise, in the last month, and I think that does matter, right? Like, I really do.
That's
I think
fair.
that discounting that, like, I will say honestly, and I don't mean that you're doing this on purpose. I think you're being really disrespectful to 100 Thieves today. I don't know what's changed, but, like,
what?
I think you are. I think you are discounting how good of a team.
Not like this. I love those guys.
I know you do. But, like, think about it. You're trying to tell me. So you tried to say in the Team Liquid 100 Thieves thing, right? That like you didn't even mention Quid. Like, you literally were like, I think that 100 Thieves or that Team Liquid are the better team, like, in all these different areas. But it's like, ultimately, like, the level of difference between Impact and Sniper right now is pretty minimal. The level of difference between River and Umpty is pretty minimal. And the difference in the bot lane, for the most part this entire season, has been minimal. Where is the major difference for 100 Thieves? Or for, like, either of those teams. It's in the mid lane, right? So,
yeah. But
then with this FlyQuest series, like, you're like, oh, well, you know, like, I just think that they've been the better team. Like, I don't see how you could say that and then, like, call out Cloud9 for inconsistencies when they have been winning. They have been.
Okay.
Right? Like, their only losses were to 100 Thieves and Immortals.
Okay.
Through the last half of the split. Those are the only 2 teams that they've lost to the entire last month of games. Right? And that includes a really big win over FlyQuest. So, like, I just think that, like, yes, their first, like, 3 weeks was inconsistent, but, like, you and I both argued this, right? Best of ones don't really show us anything. When it comes down to best of 3s and 5 series, I think that that's where you see the truly best of the best of a team. Now, that's why I have FlyQuest winning 1 game, and it may even be the first game, because C9 will mess up something, but they adapt, they learn. They have so many veterans on this team, and a lot of the time I like to say, who's the best player on either team? In this Cloud9 series, it's JoJo, right? I don't think you'd argue that. Who's the second best player in this series? Probably Blabber. Who's the third best player? Probably Inspired. So it takes us 3 players to get to FlyQuest's best player. And what Cloud9 showed in that 100 Thieves series, and you and I argued this all season, was they played as a team. They won through all their other lanes against arguably the best team in the LCS at the time. I know FlyQuest finished it first, but 100 Thieves were coming in, I mean, as solid as we could possibly see them. I mean, I almost wanted to put them first in my power rankings because I was like, dude, they're playing on another level right now. They're having fun. There's no stress. And Cloud9 were like, sit down, child. let me show you how grown-ups play League of Legends. So
Hmm.
I'm just saying that, like, I think you're discounting 100 Thieves a little bit, and I think you're discounting C9 a lot of it.
Okay, that's fair. I think so. To explain a bit more on where I'm coming from there, um, I think that I didn't touch on Quid much in the Team Liquid series because I think Quid being better than AP is a foregone conclusion, and it's more about what Team Liquid can do to stop that from happening.
But like when you have to plan around that, sorry to cut you off, like
Yeah, you do.
that automatically gives the other team the advantage. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So you're
I,
saying that
I don't.
TL will be able to curtail Quid in 5 straight games? I said, well, in, at least 3 of 5 games.
No, definitely not 5 straight games. That's why it's. That's why.
So
But
that's why I rephrased it to 3 of 5 games, essentially.
yeah, I think that if it goes really bad, the first 2 games. I mean, I think that like I would be very okay with Team Liquid if like game 1 is like horrible in the mid lane, like throw 5 bans at Quid.
Okay.
I'm not even kidding.
Okay.
Like, um, I do agree, like, and I do think like if 100 Thieves wins the series, it's gonna be like, wow, they really couldn't stop Quid from completely like making APA his bitch. Like that's what it's gonna be. Like like it's gonna be like, wow, that thing we talked about they had to do, they sure didn't. Like,
they sure
so
did not do that.
I think the C9 FlyQuest, the C9 FlyQuest, I get what you're saying. Me discounting C9, I don't value the best of 1 wins they've had. I think as highly as you in this context because a lot of my issues with C9 have been that a lot of my issues with this matchup, excuse me, is that I think FlyQuest has been better at taking a note from a loss and immediately adjusting to it, whereas I don't, and that could be and mainly in draft, right? And I do think like I've been pretty vocal about like I've not really been fans of C9's drafts and up until last week.
Yeah.
And it's not that 100 Thieves wasn't a good team. They are a good team. I don't think they were a good team last week. And I think they'd agree with me.
I think
it's like if you think that it's like, wow, C9
of a credit too. The sickness.
Maybe I am because that's what it comes down to, right? It's that I'm saying that based on what I see, I think 100 Thieves wasn't quite as up to snuff. So yeah, C9 rolled over them, but I'm not putting quite as much stock in that going forward as you are. I still think this could be the C9 team that shows up and doesn't do the thing against FlyQuest. And I also think that a series between FlyQuest and C9, I value FlyQuest strategically higher as it goes on. Sure. Because that being said, Mithy, I think, does draft better mid-series than he does beginning. Like Mithy's game 1 drafts, or maybe it's a democratic process. C9's game 1 drafts make me want to die, oftentimes. Even the 100 Thieves one scared me. They execute. Yeah. They execute. No, it was just like this is going to be such a hard to execute comp, and I'm afraid. And then they executed it beautifully. Like the draft was cool. I was just like, is this them? And then they did it. So like if all goes well, like yeah, if C9 if 100 Thieves was just fine, even if River was sick, and that's just how much better C9 is, then yeah, I'd be completely foolish to pick FlyQuest over them. But I think my perception of that situation is different from yours, and I think that's where we're seeing the differences of like. You're like, wow, like C9's back, and I'm like, I don't know, if fully back, and that's kind of where I am right now. But I do get what you're coming from because
to beat FlyQuest. That's my
okay.
I'm just telling you, I just think they're that much. Now, to be clear, I did this after week 1 as well, and I was very wrong. Right? So like but I will give you credit on 100%. You deserve all the credit, to be clear. But what I'm going to give you a lot of credit on too is like you are generally more right now than I am, at least in terms of these playoffs. So,
small sample size though.
Well, the fact that
just
we're
a couple series,
completely opposites on this, I think is really interesting, and I can't believe how excited I am because, like, one of us are going to be. It would shock me if it was a 50-50 split here. I feel like either one of us are going to be 100% right.
Oh, really? Okay.
Wrong. Like there's just something in my gut that tells me that. But I'm really excited for these series. I wish we had more time to talk about these because I think you and I could probably spend the next 3 hours going back and forth and trying to
I am so excited for these matchups, man.
They're going to be awesome.
Man, like
They are
Yeah,
going to
I'm
be
really
awesome.
excited for these matchups. Like
Um,
they're going to be so entertaining. I
so
really am happy with how this bracket shook down for sure.
I will say, so we got to do the predictions really quickly.
Yeah, let's
Um,
do it.
so I have it being TL, or no, 100 Thieves versus FlyQuest for third place. I
Yeah.
am going to pick FlyQuest 3-2, as much as I was saying, disrespect to 100 Thieves from you. I am currently going to disrespect them. And then I'm going to have it move on to be FlyQuest versus C9 again. The one thing I do agree with you 100% on is that I think FlyQuest are going to learn a lot from their series loss to C9, but I still
Mm-hmm.
ultimately think they're going to lose 3-2 because I think
Okay.
C9, I think once C9 care more, I think that's the big difference. I really just don't think they had the motivation in regular season outside of let's just make sure we get into playoffs in top 4. Outside of that, it felt like they kind of just didn't give a shit, to be honest with you. That's kind of how it felt to me. Like they were just kind of feeling their way through. I think if we're going to give credit to Core JJ and Impact and being able to flip a new switch on, the more recent examples of players who are able to do that and have won championships more recently are players like Fudge, Berserker, JoJo, Blabber, and Vulcan. Actually, all 5 of them have won championships more recently, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Impact was part of
Fair.
the one with Vulcan and JoJo, but you know what I mean. That's where it is for me. I'm going there. You have right now C9 and TL fighting for third. How do you think
Mm.
that series is going to go? Currently, unintentionally, you have a 3-1 for C9. Is that a prediction? I feel like that could be it.
Over
Over
TL
TL.
3-1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
that's what I assumed. All right, we move on to finals and FlyQuest C9. You initially had FlyQuest winning 3-1 over C9. How do you feel now? Because it's still the same
C
result, but
C9 3-1.
you are a tricky man. All right, you got 65 seconds to tell me why. I'm very curious now.
So again, I think that I think that this is a C9 team that has even been honest about their overconfidence and that they can kind of like get too high on their own supply a little bit when they play well. I
Okay.
think that I think that it'd be good for them to lose to FlyQuest because I think they will destroy Team Liquid or 100 Thieves, whoever they face. I think they will destroy. And then I do think they will learn enough. I think at the end of the season, this will be our best team. I just don't think they win this weekend.
Okay. Well,
And
because you did
I
say
think
earlier
that
you didn't think they would go to MSI as the 1 seed either. So
I said it's so I'm sorry. I don't know. Maybe I phrased it wrong.
yeah,
Regardless of their seed, C9 is the most likely team to go to MSI
you did
of
say
any
that.
team.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I'm not sure if it'll be as the first seed. I'm saying that like they will be there. They will be one of the teams there. I am 100% sure they will be one of the teams there. I just don't know if it'll be as first or second. Like and but they will definitely be there. And it's kind of weird. Like I actually think like if they beat C9, like it's weird. Like I actually think who wins the C9 FlyQuest series this weekend is I would favor the other team in the finals. Like straight up. Like
Wow.
because of the nature of how these series have gone and how important, like how few, like the LCS was already short and then we dropped 2 teams, 14 games. Like I really actually do value like which team actually got over the sample size number of 30 games before MSI. Like, and I do think like I think it's not. I think that if C9 beat FlyQuest, maybe they never needed this lesson. I do think that if they lose to FlyQuest, then they could be a better, even better team. And because I think you're right. I think like that's the thing with the C9 team. If everything goes right on paper and they execute at the level we know they can, like this is a 1-team league, but it hasn't been that way. And so I feel I'm not gonna I don't think that I'm not just like, oh, they finally did it. It's like, no, I think we're gonna, we saw this with the this roster reminds me so much of the Perks era C9. Just
Yeah.
very mid jungle focused, very like strong individual play through mid lane to open up the rest of the map, whether it be through a blabber advantage or JoJo advantage. So much of it, especially in the 100 Thieves series, their best team play, team based execution was their mid lane plays, and it was awesome. It wasn't just JoJo gapping quid. It was that Blabber's setups were superior. It was that Vulcan's roam timings were better. It was that, like Berserker was such a monster that he'd be left alone all the time again, and it wouldn't matter. And that I do think that like I do think that they I do think they can. I want them to always be that team But I think like the Perks roster, it's gonna like we've seen. It's like, oh, what the hell happened? They randomly finished like third or something, and like in the summer after being like the best team in the regular season. Like there's stuff like that where like this team is gonna be. I think at this team at its best, it's gonna be a volatile high variance team. I think this team will be a streaky team, and it's about them getting hot at the right time. Now that doesn't mean that when they're not hot, they're going to be awful. I think that they're going to continue to grow, but I think we'll always see a team that kind of is doing this with this roster.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of how when those things happen and how quick they bounce back from the low points and how much low those sinks are. Are they going to lose 4 games in a row again? I don't think so. I hope not. Like not like 4 best of ones to like Immortals and somebody else, right? Like I don't think that's going to happen again. But that's where I'm at, and I really do like. There's also a chance, right? Like I'm wrong. C9 just beats FlyQuest, and they beat who they played in the finals, and they were the good team the whole time, and they're already there. I just don't know if they're there yet, and I think that it's the most likely way of them getting there is them actually losing this weekend and then beating Team Liquid and then rematch FlyQuest in the finals and beating FlyQuest.
Well,
that's where I see things going.
Find out. That was listen. I can't totally argue with you. I think. I think I bring the passion, and I think you bring the stronger analytical mind, which I always appreciate. I think that's a good.
This is a lot more gut for me, though. I think on paper, like your predictions are more correct, but based on like what I've seen from these players, what I've seen in past years, I'm like, I feel like. Yeah, I mean, look, if I'm wrong on both, I'll have Ruby put on some clown makeup for the next
no, dude, this one's
episode.
Too much. This is too much of what for you to do that on. This is too close. I would say that if you were like telling me, I don't know, that like 100 Thieves were gonna like 6-0 their way, or I guess technically now 9-0 their way through playoffs, then I'd be like, all right, bro, get that clown makeup out, bro. There's no chance that's happening.
No, I love 100 Thieves. I just think I think that the time's run out. I think they could finish third, but
their clock has hit midnight.
It just seems a lot like the Golden Guardians run from last summer, and I could just be being like connecting dots that aren't there, and like I think we're gonna find out this weekend. But I don't know. That's where I'm at. And again, I do think if C9 wants to be the best team in North America by the end of this playoffs, they have to lose this weekend. They need to be humbled one more time to reach their MSI form, I think.
We're gonna find out.
Or they've been sandbagging the whole time and they're super sick nasty like we thought they were going to be. And I'll be happy to be wrong because then we'll have one good team. But I hope they're challenged because I think at this point we've seen enough parity in the LCS that like these teams just need to keep being challenged with the few amount of games they're playing. And so I'm hoping we see that. I think that's more interesting. But I'm sure like C9 fans are like, what the hell are you talking about right now? But yeah, that's where I'm at.
All right, I love it. I will say this to your point. I think as long as 2 of the 3 teams being 100 Thieves, FlyQuest, and C9, 2 of those 3 teams, don't care which ones, as long as they are the ones that go to MSI, I will be happy. I just think that TL is, again, I know I defended APA, and I still love him. I still want him to do very well, but I will say that if there are places that he will get absolutely gapped, it's going to be at MSI, and that makes it so Team Liquid are... so far behind, it really doesn't matter. I think he'll get better from this playoff run, and I think from his break. I think summer APA, as long as TL decide to keep him, because I just don't know who the hell they need to replace him with at this point, unless if they go and they surprise everybody and get Perks off the bench. That would be very.
That's a downgrade right now.
I mean,
unfortunately,
but you know what I mean.
It's really. I don't want to talk about it. Perks is like my favorite.
I'm literally wearing a Perks jersey. I bought this season.
Are you really?
Jersey. It's the only jersey outside of Bjergsen that I have a name on, and it's Perks. Because when he came over, I was like, he's one of the GOATs. I want to have a jersey of his, even if he's only here for a year.
Respect. Good choice.
I did.
Yeah.
But no, we'll have to see. I'm really excited. Yeah. Tomorrow, Saturday, as a reminder, Friday, Saturday games. Don't know why they didn't decide to. Oh, I know why they didn't decide to do Sunday. I'm pretty sure that's Valorant finals.
That's the Valorant, the Masters of Madrid Grand Finals. Thank you for reminding me, by the way. I totally forgot Blast was tomorrow.
Yeah, that makes sense for me, to be honest with you. Like that's a time.
It doesn't bother me
for them to move it because a Grand Finals over semifinals,
a grand finals of
quarterfinals.
essentially their
Makes sense.
MSI. I mean, this is Masters Madrid. This is the first international event. Like, I'm fine with it. And Fridays are fine. Thursdays can be a little egregious at times.
Yeah, but
Wednesdays and you lose me. But
Hey,
anyway,
it was good for us when we were at work and doing, but everybody else not great. But regardless,
no.
We do appreciate you guys as always for listening. And with that, we'll catch you guys on the next one.